I've got in front of me here a Roland Juno 106 from 1984. It's a classic, gorgeous, iconic bit of kit. And why is it so classic and iconic? Well, it's because it's got a really nice, simple interface. When it came out, it had MIDI, not many other things did. It was really good value for money, but most of all, it sounds amazing. And you probably won't be able to find an electronic musician from the 80s or maybe a dance musician from the early 90s that hasn't at least once played with a 106. And on my laptop next to me, I've got this. It's the Model 84 from Softube. And the first thing you notice about this when you load it up is quite how marvelous this interface is. You can drag the size of it really simply, but more than that, I'm looking at this on a monitor that's about 5 foot away from me, 4K monitor, and it looks spectacular. I think it's probably the best looking GUI I've ever seen. The attention to detail is staggering, even to these two little yellowed keys. And I've been playing with it for a few hours now, and even at one point I tried to scratch the bit of dirt that's on the graphic off that B, tried to scratch it off on the keyboard itself, and that's because the sounds are so similar, or what I've done so far at least have been so similar that I've been getting confused with which one I'm playing, and it's easily done. So apart from the attention to detail on the GUI, the attention to detail in the sound on this thing is incredible. You also get the modules for Softube's modular, and that means that you can stick in, like I've got here, 3 oscillator monosynth based on a 106 with FM. So we've got the FM here. So there's far too much fun to be had with that, and I've spent far too long over the past few hours messing around with it when I intended this afternoon just to be about looking at the Model 84. So let's go back to the Model 84 and just go over the main basics of the GUI and the sort of main functionality of the synth. So it all looks very familiar with your LFO and your delay time, like we've got down on the 106, got LFO and delay time down here, followed by the DCO, which is very, very similar, if not identical, I'd have said. And on the Juno, we then go to the high pass filter. The high pass filter on the Model 84 is called the EQ here. And if you've played the 106, you know that the high pass filter on 0 gives a bump on the low end. So I suppose calling it an EQ is probably a bit more accurate than high pass filter, because high pass filters don't normally give you a low end bump. And then we move over to the VCF on the Juno 106. On the Model 84, it's called the LPF. I suppose it's not voltage controlled when it's inside my laptop, but again, all really familiar. Frequency, resonance, you've got the choice of positive or minus envelopes, and envelope, LFO, or keyboard tracking. Volume knob, you've got the volume knob down on the left-hand side on the 106. Then we've got the section with the pitch, mod, and glide sliders over here on the bottom left. And that's what you get with the pitch and modulation wheel on the Juno, but it's actually laid out a little bit better in the software, because pitch here is actually the pitch bend. So we've got DCO and LPF. On this we've got DCO and VCF. Same things. And if you look at the pitch wheel on the 106, we can see that the bender goes to the DCO and the VCF, and the LFO only goes to this slider here. So this is called the modulation on the Model 84. And then we've got glide as well, and on the 106 we've got a portamento on a knob. So it's all exactly the same functionality. Then we move over to the voicing. We've got Poly 1, Poly 2, and on the 106 put them both together and you've got unison. And here we can see we've got Poly 1, Poly 2 and unison on Model 84. Envelope, ADSR envelope, just a single ADSR envelope, followed by the VCA. It's a different way round on the 106, but you've got envelope or gate, same on the Model 84, followed by, at the end, the chorus. So off, 1 or 2, off, 1 or 2. And if we open this up here, we've got a few more controls. We've got velocity for the filter, the amplifier and the pulse width, and we've got aftertouch as well for the same. We've got a really nice addition here, which is the unison spread on the Model 84, which is really good actually, because on the 106 it's almost pointless. It's really weird and phasey, so it's not much good for anything, whereas on the Model 84, very nice. And you get this sync as well. And I think that's syncing the start of the waves on all the oscillators. Take it off. So I really like that. And then we move down here and we've got tuning and we've got chorus, stereo or mono. And on the 106 you've got the option of having just the mono out. With the mono out you still get the sort of the full range of the chorus. You're not just listening to one speaker, so it doesn't sound sort of really weird if you stick it through a guitar amp. So it's really nice that you've got the option to do something similar on the Softube as well. So we've got the same sort of functionality. Let's now listen and see if we get the same sort of sounds. So I'll start off with just a simple sawtooth, and that's patch A11 on my 106. It's what I always start with, and in fact, I never really take it off that. I don't really bother going through the 128 different presets. It's so simple to program this. I just make the sound I want when I want it. It's quicker than trying to find a sound that's on patch number 124, for example. So let's try that on the Model 84. Now maybe you can see why I was having difficulty realizing which one I was playing. That's spectacularly close, and it's a sound I know inside out. Back to the 106. I just can't tell the difference. So as far as I can tell, they're exactly the same. I can't even say there's minor differences because I'm not hearing anything. So the next thing I did, obviously, was get the frequency analysis out just to see exactly what's happening, because sometimes you think it's a bit buzzier and it's not buzzier, it's just a little bit louder. So let's take a look at them. So looking at the two of those together, I'm getting it so the fundamental frequency is just touching the 0 dB line. Maybe the Softube is a little bit buzzier at times, a tiny little bit more high end on there, but not really. And I spent quite a while digging into that actually. And when I come to the filter, I'll explain why sometimes you think it is and sometimes you think it isn't. And it's just to do with the calibration of this old thing here. So let's take a look at the pulse waves now. So we have a nice clean square. But doesn't quite go through 0. Goes to around 5–10%. Let's try that on this. Sounds the same. Let's just double check. So yeah, that sounds the same to me. There's a few seconds more when I'm doing it than when I edit it and what you're listening to, obviously, because I've got to turn this down, I've got to unmute one, I've got to mute the other. So I've got to fiddle around for a few seconds, so try and remember what I heard. But from what I can gather, Yeah, they're identical for all intents and purposes. I couldn't tell you which one was which. Sometimes when I do these reviews and these comparisons, you can tell slight differences, and it doesn't really make much of a difference, but on this, the character is exactly the same. As you go through that pulse width, you get exactly the same tone no matter where you are with both of them. So let's try a bit of pulse width modulation. Stick it on an LFO, slowish rate, a little bit of PWM. And what's quite amazing actually is I'm putting the sliders in the same place. That's on around 3, exactly on 3 actually. And if I look at the software version, it's the same. That's pretty spectacular, isn't it? Should we see how fast that LFO goes? Let's take the pulse width modulation off, put DCO LFO on, so we're going to modulate the pitch now. Pulse width off. Again, it's absolutely spot on. Same instrument so far. So this is sounding really good, isn't it? Let's try the sub, shall we? Playing the wrong one now. Again, absolutely brilliant. Noise maybe a tiny bit louder. I'm doing my best to find differences, but I'm really picking if I am. Is that a bit brighter, maybe a bit louder? I don't think so. I think I'm just looking for things now. Let's try it with the sub as well. Doing it again using the wrong synth. No, I think they're absolutely amazingly close. So that's all the sounds, the sub, the noise, the pulse or the square on the pulse, and the sawtooth. Let's try it on this. So up to this point on the panel, everything seems to be the same. I've not tried the delay time. Okay, let's put it on to just a sawtooth. Delay time, let's put it on 50% so we're not waiting around too long. Let's do the same on this. Let's play them both together, shall we? They're the same. Let's stick it up to full actually. We found the difference with the 106. We're getting a small lump there in the low frequencies at around 30 Hz. Watch this. Let's take the delay times off. It's not there anymore. There we go. So there we go. When we play an E or thereabouts, a middle E, middle C, we're getting some low frequency noise in the 106 that we don't get in the Model 84. I feel like I'm really doing my job as a comparison properly now. Because, you know, I think anyone will be able to create sounds on the 106 that sound identical to the Model 84. So far, from what I've heard, it's absolutely spot on. So let's move over to the high pass filter on the 106, and that's called the EQ on the Model 84. So let's just go to a sawtooth, shall we? So we're hitting 0 on the fundamental frequency, on the frequency analysis when I'm playing this C. Then I take the HPF down to 0, and it's going above it. Everything rises a bit, but the low frequencies do get a little bit of a bump. It's in the Roland manual or description, it's not just louder. Let's try that on the Model 84 then. It's doing exactly the same thing. The top end's moving a tiny bit, but the low end's moving more. Let's just compare them. And there again, I wasn't sure which one I was playing. Sometimes, as I say, you think you're hearing differences, but... So let's move over to the filter then, and this is where I can find differences, and that's because my 106 needs calibrating. Don't forget, it's got these almost 40-year-old chips in it. They haven't been replaced. They're the original chips. I have done the acetone trick and I've taken the plastic covers off them, so they're not deteriorating, but they could probably do with some calibration, and I'll show you exactly why now. Let's just... Playing the wrong synth again. Struggling to get my head around this actually. Okay, that's definitely the hardware. So if I put the resonance up, and we'll just listen to the filter, so I'll turn it down a bit. You can hear it's going out of tune. Haven't got tracking on, but should all be playing the same note, and they're not. So we're getting those really slight variations in the brightness. On the oscillators, it's literally just the difference between the filter being a tiny bit brighter. And you can hear 6 voices, 6 different tunings. So I'm not going to get them to sound exactly the same, obviously, because this one could do with some little TLC. But I quite like the fact that it's old and it's got foibles. And what you notice there is we get definite stepping because it's digitally controlled from 1984, and you're not getting like you get something on the Moog Sub 37 where you've got thousands and thousands of points to pick from. You've got 128 or 100. So let's try that on the Model 84. Slight differences there actually. There are definitely little differences there with each of the 6 voices, aren't there? But they're a lot more in tune than this was. Okay, let's see what we get on a filter sweep then. I'm playing the wrong instrument again. Oh, God. So really, really high. Way over 20 kilohertz. And we're getting that classic step in. And there's no way that hasn't been programmed in deliberately. I'm sure that Softube could make that smoother if they wanted. So let's try that again on the 106. And again on the 84. It's exactly the same. So they're spectacularly close, even though this is slightly out. But let's try it a little bit more musically, shall we? Let's get myself a copyright claim and do a filter sweep. Let's put the sawtooth on. So now I've actually tried to tweak the 106 with the software and tweak the software with the 106. Honestly, it's quite confusing. If we don't do it on a C, I might have less chance of getting a copyright claim. nice, that, isn't it? That bass is incredible. Let's try that on the software. We're getting the same beautiful bass in this as well. Wow, really impressed with that. That's the software again still. And let's go back into the hardware. And I can't do it on the hardware because you can hear 6 voices, 6 different tunings. But I can use the software for it now instead. So when I take it out of self-oscillation, I can control this a little bit more. Let's try that on the 84. Pretty good, that, actually. Sounds the same. Okay, I've got the sounds the same. I've got the filter tuned the same. Let's try exactly the same on the 84. Same. It's really weird when you're doing something that's so close. You're trying to get your head around what you're about to do next, and every single time I'm forgetting which one I'm playing. It's really quite confusing, and I know I've said it a couple of times now. So yeah, we've done the LFO, the DCO, the HPF, and the VCF. The same. I'm not going to bother with the VCA. Does it make it a bit more distorted? Well, I had a look earlier and I couldn't really tell. It's really hard to do that without some specialist equipment. It just sounds like it's getting louder and brighter, and that's because you're getting more top end and it's getting louder. Let's take the resonance off, frequency up. Shape of that frequency analysis isn't changing. It's not getting higher in the low end or higher in the high end or anything like that. Like, it's changing the tone. Let's try it on this. Same effect. What I'm noticing there is a pulley VCA up and down is that obviously because the slider's 30 odd years old, I'm getting some minor fluctuations in the volume, but I wonder if there's any fluctuations just while it sort of holds a tone. Yeah, you can hear it's electrical, can't you? It's not completely smooth. I'd expect the Model 84 was, but let's just try it, you never know. I think they've probably modelled it on one that's had a little bit of servicing at least once in its life. No, am I going nuts, or is that actually fluctuating as well? Definitely is, isn't it? That's not me. Definitely some fluctuation going on there, and that's amazed me actually. Didn't think that would happen. Well, there you go. So VCA, both sound like old synths. Let's move over to the envelope then. Not a lot to show on the envelope. I don't want to spend too long on this. Got the resonance. Let's put the resonance up and let's just do sort of a quick filter sweep, shall we? Like a. It's not known for its snappy envelopes, this. That was fun. Let's try it on the software. Yeah, I don't want to really go into that because it's boring. So let's move on to the chorus then. This is a big one. Much more fun than the envelopes. Okay. You can hear the timing of that. Wow, wow, wow. It's in stereo. Let's try that on the software. Same timing. Sounding very similar. Sounds the same, doesn't it? Let's put a bit of attack and release on those envelopes, make it sound a little bit more like a pad. And that's just such a classic Roland Juno 106 tone. Chorus 2 hits faster. Okay, let's try that on the Model 84. So that's exactly the same, isn't it? I'm really impressed by that. I don't really get much noise from this. I do if I turn it up, but at the minute I can't really hear it anyway because my computer's wearing away because it's videoing the screen, it's recording the screen. So I can't really hear much. There you go, we can see on the screen at least that the 106 has got a bit of noise going on, even if I can't hear it in here. There you go, you can hear that little, like a whoosh and a clip and a whoosh and a clip. Are we getting anything like that on the software? Just seeing if we can add some noise somewhere. And then we've got the mono mode as well, so I'll put this into mono. Do the same with Juno. So if you want to plug your laptop into your guitar amp, you can, and have chorus in mono. Nice little touch there. So we're nearly there. Let's look at the poly modes and glide now, shall we? If you don't know, poly mode 1 and 2 assign the oscillators in different ways, and they also allow you to have a unison mode as well. So what's nice about the 106 is that once you've played a note, it uses the same oscillator to repeat that note. And what's nice about that is you don't get phasing between each of the oscillators. And you get a nice clear start every time you press the note because you don't get the overlap from the previous oscillator's release. Quite fundamental. I did a comparison of the 106 with the DeepMind, and that doesn't do that, and you can really tell when you're doing those sort of bass lines and gets really phasey. So let's see the Model 84. I'll be absolutely gobsmacked if they haven't done this. And they have. The Prophet 5 does that, the Prophet 6 doesn't. It's just a different way of doing things. So this is exactly the same as the 106 as you'd expect. Polymode 2, let's try that. So on Polymode 2, what you can hear there is that the envelope to the notes that I'm playing at the top release, they don't carry on. I'm not getting a flow through from the C to the D to the E to the F like I would in Polymode 1. And again, that's really nice for doing those sorts of things. In Polymode 1, they all have the same release envelope, so they merge into each other. Just a different effect. Let's see if the Model 84 is doing the same. There's sort of hardly any point in testing this really, because you know it's going to. Yeah, all behaving as it should. We heard unison mode earlier. Let's try portamento now. And portamento is really good and really clever with the different poly modes. So I'm playing the wrong synth again. It's driving me insane. I'll put portamento on, and Polymode 1 and Polymode 2 act differently because the assigning of the oscillators obviously dictates which oscillator's playing next, and that means which oscillator's gliding from one to the next. Polymode 2. I'd be amazed if they haven't done this because they've done everything else right. So let's try it on Polymode 2 on this. It's doing what it should. Polymode 1. Again, doing exactly what it should. But let's try a little experiment. Let's do sort of like that Dolby surround sound where you get all the sort of notes coming into one. So I'll do that on the hardware first. Put it into unison mode. Put the portamento on full. There you go, I couldn't be bothered waiting. Let's try it on the software. Well, I think you'll have gathered if you've watched all of this that it's spectacularly close, if not identical. I'm really, really tried to pull it apart and see what I could find that's different. And apart from that one sort of low-end wobble on the LFO, absolutely nothing, except for the fact that I've now discovered this one needs calibrating. But let's face it, I'm not going to pay anyone to recalibrate it, because if I want those sort of tones, I can use the Model 84. So it's a really, really nice bit of software. I'm not going to get rid of my 106. I love something that I've had around for years and years. But from a software perspective, it's absolutely brilliant. And obviously, you can use as many of them as you want in a mix. So really good. There's one thing I have noticed though, and that's if we go here to the link-in mode for the CC, so that you can use it with a controller. You can't control it with the 106 because the 106 sends system exclusive through these. It sends CC for the bender and the pitch bend. The mod wheel and the pitch bend work, but none of the sliders. Would be nice to be able to use the 106 to control the software, although I'm not quite sure why really. Only today it would have been really useful. Not sure if it would ever be useful ever again, but it'd be nice to be able to do it. But if that's all I'm picking up on, it's a great little synth, and to be able to use it in the modular system as well. So I've been playing around, as I said at the start of this, I've been playing around for hours with that. That's been really good fun. So it gets the big thumbs up from me. I can't finish this without mentioning that there are other emulations there, of course. There's the Tal Audio, there's Roland Cloud's own 106 emulation, and there's the Juno 60, I think it is now, from Arturia. So there's plenty of options out there, but this is the only one that's got modular, and I've not tried all the others against this. Maybe that's something to do in the future, but 60 versus 106, there are differences in the sound. But if you want a 106 and you want it in the box, Softube is definitely worth a look. So I hope that was of use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please think about subscribing and ringing that bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And also take a look at my Patreon page, where I've got over 6 hours worth of tutorials on how to get the most out of your synths. So I'll see you next time.